Hey everyone, welcome to my review of the Piety and Pain book for Warhammer 40k. I kind of lucked out with it coming a little bit early this time around, but the main things that we'll be looking at here in the contents is that we have Visions of Blasphemy, kind of our little showcase of the units, as well as probably the meat of what people are after here, such as the rules. So something I wanted to touch on is that within the rules we have a couple of really major things. For those of you who like the Crusade mechanics, we have some new Theater of War, as well as their missions. We have Urban Arena, which basically allows a defender to have an advantage of kind of pulling from 3 random tables in terms of letting them pick kind of traps to utilize on the battlefield for the attacker to have to overcome, and that they can utilize those in the Soul Hunt and the Enough It Is Enough missions. Likewise, we also have special rules, new battle traits, and relics for the Drukhari Crusade and for the Adeptus Sororitas Crusade, which, if you're up with the multi-melta meta right now, there's a really melta-hot trait in there for the Retributors that'll actually let them always count as firing at half range, which, honestly, I don't know why you would never take that one as pretty much an auto-include. We also have our datasheets, of course, for the Retributor weapon profiles and lists, as you would be familiar with. But the new ones we really want to focus on today is Lilith's Hesperex, as well as the Palatine for the Adeptus Sororitas. So in this book here, I'll go through a little bit quickly. We have some really nice artwork. Those lucky enough to grab the box, of course, you'll get kind of your full-sized poster of the bit of a picture on the left there. And we get some nice history into what's going on in this war zone here with the Visions of Blasphemy. Of course, the Pain and Piety book is looking at both the Drukhari and the Adeptus Sororitas, which are featured heavily in kind of the lore that's going on here. And of course, that's why those two factions are included. So, leading the Drukhari force in this box, we have Lilith with her new and updated model. And for the first time ever, in recent editions anyway, we're finally getting a Palatine, or a Lieutenant equivalent model for the Adeptus Sororitas. So there's a little bit of information there on the named character that they've kind of included in the lore. Whether or not we'll see maybe that named character in an upcoming codex, wink wink nudge nudge, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully, as fellow Sisters of Battle players are quite familiar with, we're quite heavily lacking named characters and HQ choices as well. So it remains to be seen if maybe we'll kind of get our reward from the Emperor after the long wait here. As we get into the Twilight Nightmares, that kind of talks about the capital shrine city of Purity, and where the battle's going to be taking place between these two forces. Again, we get a little bit more artwork here as we go through, and a nice bit of lore. Always nice when GW throws us a bone and gives us a bit more lore about the non-Space Marine factions. But of course, the meat of this book is the rules, and the ones that we're really focused on here, other than the Theater of War, is going to be our Drukhari and the Adeptus Sororitas Crusade rules. So with the Theater of War, or Urban Arena, you can see here, based on the number of points that are being used in a particular match, tells how many number of uses the defender will actually have access to. And so if you're using the Urban Arena rules, after you do the deployment zones, you get to secretly select the uses that you have available. Alternatively, of course, if you want to make it really interesting for both players and keep both players on their toes, you can, of course, use the 3 different random tables that we have. So we have our first ruse table there, where there is gas, blaring cacophonies, and collapsing charges. Our second ruse table, with proximity mines, tripwire, and decoy projections. And finally, our third table there, with smokescreen, shielding systems, and the Sphere of Night. So a lot of choices there, and gives a lot of variability to using the Theater of War Urban Arena system. Of course, we have our 2 missions here that come in the book. So we have Soul Hunt, and then, of course, we have the rules that go along with it. So the main thing here is that you're using the standard 44x30 battlefield. So for those of you not familiar, it's pretty much throwing 2 kill team boards together, smaller than our standard system here. And the main thing here is that the Drukhari player is going to have that first turn, And a little bit of the deployment map there. As you can see, we have the Drukhari player on the left and the Sisters player on the right, with our 6 blocks of terrain, and our Immolator specifically located there on the right. Now, it's important to note that in this we have several victory conditions, essentially looking at how many times the player is able to successfully complete the locate signs action. It is important to note that under the cautious advance rule, each unit from the Adeptus Sororitas player army can move no further than 6 inches in the movement phase. So if you're ever playing this mission beyond just what's in the box and you have things like dominions or vehicles, or your Immolator for instance, keep in mind that you're capped at 6 feet of movement with or without advances. So it's going to be a definite foot slog for the Sisters players here, trying to stem the Drukhari tide. Likewise, we have the sweep and search and the locate signs, and those are the main 2 things that we're going to be looking at here for the Adeptus Sororitas trying to score some points. And of course, when it comes to the victor bonus here, for the Crusade players, that victor is going to gain 2 requisition points after this battle instead of the normal 1. And bonus points here, if the victor can achieve a major victory, they gain 3 requisition points. So playing for a big pool of requisition points in this mission, which is kind of nice and handy if it's one of your opening missions and you're trying to get your Crusade army up to snuff pretty quick. Likewise, we have the Enough is Enough mission here. And again, this one is a pretty blank or open slate here in terms of battlefield deployment. The Adeptus Sororitas player is really crammed in to a little tiny box here, and has to deal with the whole line of Drukhari. So in addition to our Adeptus Sororitas players being crammed into such a small deployment, our Drukhari is once more going to be the instigators and aggressors in this battle, getting the first turn in there. And eventually this battle will end once one player's prize model has been destroyed. Likewise, the rule for this is simply a prize too great to resist. And in this battle, both Lilith and our Palatine gain the prize keyword, and once that model has been destroyed, you'll have the victor. But until it's destroyed, there's some little extra rules here. Only the prize model from your army can target the enemy prize model with attacks, and the prize model from your army can only target the enemy prize model with attacks. So keep that in mind. Your models also can't move within engaged range of your enemy prize model, unless they too are the prize model. So we're going to have a little bit of a Battle of Troy going on here between our 2 great warriors. So have a final showdown there where the rest of them duke it out or watch on to the glorious battle. Now there's also a really neat method where we have the challenge within this, where a prize model within engagement range of an enemy model is selected to fight. That enemy prize model is selected to fight at the same time. Players will alternate making those attacks one at a time, starting with the player whose turn is taking place. So this will give you a really nice balance. Kind of feels like a little bit of a apocalypse in terms of resolving attacks, but gives them both an equal fight and gives that nice flow of a hit and defend mentality. Likewise, each time here, the Palatine is selected to fight. You can reroll 1 hit roll, reroll 1 wound roll, and reroll 1 saving throw made for that Palatine to try and give her a little bit of an added boost because she's going up against the named character of Lilith, who's typically probably more of a melee contender here, whereas the Palatine's a bit more of a support role. And at the end here, our little bit of a victor bonus, contrary to the last mission here, is that every eligible unit in the victor's army gets marked for greatness after the battle instead of just 1. So where that last mission there is really great for getting requisition points, this one's going to be great for getting some experience on your units. So we can get some really nice Crusade traits going forward here. On the Drukhari side, we have some neat battle traits here, mainly focusing on the witches, where we can get the Dancer of Hecate, the Urban Funambulists, and the Bloody Performance. The first one here gives an additional 1 to the attack characteristics of models in your unit. Only 1 unit can have this trait in your order of battle. This is really fantastic, as witches are looking pretty hot in terms of the amount of attacks that they can crank out right now. Our second option here is that each time a unit makes a normal move, advances fall back, or makes a charge move, until that move is finished, all the models can move horizontally and vertically through models and terrain. so long as they don't finish on top of something else. So this is really cool if you want to move through parts that would otherwise be blocked off to you, useful for grabbing objectives, or for getting some really good hit-and-run ambush or guerrilla warfare tactics. Our third trait that they can get is that each time this unit consolidates in a turn in which any enemy units were destroyed by a melee attack, lets each model move up to 6 inches instead of the regular 3, and does not have to end its move closer to the nearest enemy model. So this further reinforces their kind of hit-and-run mentality. So in addition to being able to move even further after that battle has been resolved, if they destroy something in melee, they can now also choose to tactically withdraw away from the enemy instead of having to run directly into further bloodshed. Our other new traits are for the Scourge here, and this is where we have Cloaked in Shade, Malign Descent, and Spyro Hunters. This is where each time a ranged attack is allocated to a model in this unit while receiving the benefits of cover, they get an additional +1 to their armor save throw made for that attack, so pretty much doubling the effects of cover here. The Malign Descent will allow them to have it so that each time an attack is made by a model in this unit in a turn in which it was set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, so i.e. the first time it pops onto the battle map there, you get to add 1 to the hit roll and 1 to the wound roll, so it makes them really good hit and runners as well, popping in there for some precision strikes. Finally, we have Spyro Hunters, where the models in this unit do not suffer the penalty for moving and shooting heavy weapons. It's pretty straightforward, nothing really special, but, you know, getting rid of that -1 to hit with moving and shooting heavy weapons as if you're a vehicle or a monster really does come in handy. Now, my personal favorites here for the Adeptus Sororitas. We also have some really nifty battle traits here. For the Retributors, this is, well, it's just so incredible. Depending on your flavor that you like of the Holy Trinity, we have Cleansers in Flame, and this is where you basically get a minimum 3 for your Heavy Flamer attack rolls, or number of hits, rather. So it's kind of like all your Flamers have Blast, and they always go off against a unit of 6 to 10 models. So that's really handy if you're not playing Even Chalice with that stratagem to get max Flamer hits, to have reliable, consistent Flamer attacks. Righteous Consecrator is also pretty good here. This is good for the bolt weapon aspect, and this is where if the target's within range of an objective marker, you can reroll hit rolls against them with any bolter weapon. So great if you're running a bunch of heavy bolter Retributors. Finally, saving the best for last here out of most of the battle traits I've ever seen here, in the new multi-melta meta spam, we have Ardent Onslaught, and this time, each time a model in this unit makes an attack with a melta weapon, that target is always treated as being within half range. So obviously that will always net you that extra +2 damage, and when you combine that with things like Storm of Retribution or Holy Trinity, those melters are running at +3 damage, getting some nice bonuses to wound there, hopefully within your range of your Canoness and your Palatine for rerolls, and will pretty much just point and delete anything they look at, especially using your Morium Cherubs afterwards to even pick at a second target if your first one survived. For the Immolator as well, we got some new traits here. Our first one basically gives it 1 free Overwatch per battle, no CP, but it does use the stratagem, so you can't spam your Overwatches that turn. The Inferno Braziers will give you a little bit of a, kind of a mortal wound aura, kind of like our Plasmancer and the Necrons. And at the start of the fight phase here, you roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 1 inch. On a 4 and 5, that enemy unit suffers a 1 mortal wound, and on a 6, that enemy unit suffers a d3 mortal wounds. So it's kind of a, you know, when it rains it pours thing here. If you have that Immolator sticking in melee as maybe a bit of a barricade for your weaker units that might be more prone to physical combat, this will still make your enemy think twice about how long they want to sit in combat getting torched and eating a bunch of mortal wounds. Now finally we have the Expergation Sweep here, and that basically makes it so your Immolator is going to ignore the benefits of cover on enemies that it attacks as long as they are within 12 inches. Now, for the really neat things, of course, we have our lovely Crusade Relics. So this is where it's going to be your really neat things here. We have our Tormentrix as a artificial grade relic, and the Tormentrix replaces an Agonizer item. and has the following profile. Obviously, it's going to be a melee weapon here, but it does come with your Poison 2+, but has an AP of -4, pretty much negating anything that's power armor or worse there, and even some of those things if they're in cover, and dealing a static damage 1. For the Antiquity Relic, we have the Casket of Suffering, and this one's really neat. It adds not only 1 to the bearer's wounds characteristic, but each time that bearer would lose a wound, it effectively gives them a 5+++ or a 5-up, feel no pain. That's really handy there for making sure that whatever unit you pluck that onto is going to stick around. Now for the Crusade Relics on the Adeptus Sororitas side here, in contrast, we also have 1 Artificer and 1 Antiquity Relic as well. We have Sorosong, which is a new pistol relic, giving a Wrath of Emperor relic from before in the core regular rulebook there, a bit of a run for the money. This is a plasma pistol version instead of the bolt pistol, and it's basically an 18-inch range instead of the usual 12, pistol 1 type. It basically fires as if it's overcharged at strength 8 with an AP of -3, but nicely does always a flat 3 damage, so it's kind of a super duper reliable overcharge there on your plasma with extended range. So this is a real nice one to pick, maybe on that Palatine, for example, there, who's going to be throwing around that plasma pistol left, right, and center. Likewise, we also have that Antiquity Relic there with the Chaplet of the Reverent, and this gives a unit a 4-up invulnerable save. In addition, each time the bearer would lose a wound against a mortal wound, it's effectively going to ignore that on a 5-up on a d6. So effectively, a feel no pain of a 5+ against mortal wounds, in addition to a 4++ save. So some really handy stuff there. As we get into our normal data sheets and things like that, there's nothing really all too new here in terms of what we have access to. It's just kind of an updated sheet that does make the inclusion of the upgrades to things like Multi-Melta, Heavy Flamers, and Heavy Bolters. But otherwise, there's nothing special here for us just yet. When it comes to Lilith, she has quite the hefty new set of stats here. You know, in addition to successfully hitting on 2s for melee and for range there, Lilith has her Lilith's Blades with a +1 to strength, effectively making her strength 4 before any other modifiers, with an AP -3 and a damage of 1, with the added effect that each time an attack is made with this weapon, and a modified hit of a 6 scores an additional hit. So you're getting exploding 6s there. She has 7 attacks, so you have quite the chances of getting some extras even before any other modifiers are included here. She also comes with the Blade Artist and Power from Pain, as per usual. She also has at last a challenge, and each time a model makes a melee attack, if it happens to target a character or monster unit, you can re-roll the hit roll and re-roll the wound, so she'll be an excellent character and monster assassinator. She also has Brides of Death as an aura there, giving friendly Cult of Strife core units within 6 inches the ability to re-roll hit rolls of 1 in melee, and Quicksilver Dodge to give herself a 4-up invulnerable save, and that each time a melee attack is made against it, subtract 1, giving her a bit of added durability in a fight. Really comes in handy in that second mission we went over a little bit earlier. She also has Natural Perfection, and in your command phase you get to choose one of the following. Either Thrilling Acrobatics with a unit, until the end of the turn, this model or unit is still eligible to declare a charge, even if it fell back or advanced. Again, further building on that kind of hit-or-run approach there. Or your alternative option is Gory Spectacle, where in the fight phase of this turn, if this model destroys an enemy unit, an enemy model, even better, then at the end of the phase, it can fight again. So be on the lookout if you're fighting Lilith here. She'll be an excellent chaff clearer as well. And finally, she has no escape, so that each time an enemy unit is within engagement range and is selected to fall back, they have to succeed in a roll-off against you, or else that unit cannot fall back this turn. For Witches units here, they're pretty straightforward. I'm not a Drukhari player per se here, so I'm not too sure if there's anything really new here, but I'll just give you a quick view of your war gear options, what there is, and the abilities here. Again, all the Witches get a 6-up invulnerable and a 4-up invulnerable against melee attacks. In addition, they also have no escape, so in addition to being great at hit-and-run tactics there, Your witches are going to be great at tying down enemy units that you would like them to not run away and shoot you in the face thereafter. So really useful with that no escape option that you have access to. We also have our Scourges here. Again, they're pretty straightforward for the most part. We got some war gear options here as well. And nothing too crazy. They got the Blade Artist, Power from Pain, Ghost Plate Armor for 5-up invulnerable, and the Wing Strike, so that during deployment you can essentially set this up in Deep Strike phase the usual way and put them down wherever you want as per normal flyers with Deep Strike. Finally, for the Drukhari, we have the Venom here. And again, it's pretty straightforward in terms of what this looks at here. It's an open-topped vehicle, can explode, has a flicker field, and can hover, and can hold up to 6 Drukhari infantry models, but not grotesque Scourges or Skyguards. Next up here, we have some nice, pretty-looking artwork here for the Sisters of Battle, and for the menacing Drukhari force as well. For the Palatine, which is really what all the Sisters of Battle players that are probably watching this video are after here. This is her beloved datasheet. She's pretty good with 2 up to hits, strength 3, toughness 3 as usual, 4 wounds, an attack value of 3, a leadership of 8, and an inherent 3-up save. Now, she is quite well equipped in terms of her normal sisters here. She has both a bolt pistol and a plasma pistol, but you're noticing the sprue in the box, they're both right-handed pistols. So maybe we'll see a day 1 FAQ, or you have to do some kit bashing there and arm chopping. She also comes with a power sword and the usual grenades. Nothing special in terms of what her weapons do, though, of course. But it is important to note that if you want her to have that Rosarius for a native 4-up invulnerable save, if you're not using the Celestine Cathedral approach there, it is going to replace your bolt pistol. So if you're making the model with the Rosarius, no issues there. Put your plasma gun in the right hand and the Rosarius in the left. But if you're skipping that Rosarius, which we'll have to wait and see if it costs any points here, just like we have to wait to see what the Palatine is going to be pointed or power leveled at, then you might have to make some decisions here in terms of the points too much for that Rosarius, and how you're going to shove 2 right-handed guns on this model with some finicky adjustments here. And of course, the reason that we'd be including this Palatine as essentially our lieutenant equivalent is that we get Fury of the Righteous to re-roll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by models in friendly order units, whilst their unit is within 6 inches of this model. It is important to note and point out here that nowhere are we mentioning anything about core units, so it does sound like for at least the foreseeable future we will be safe in not worrying about our ores being core units only, until GW decides that it's time for that nice new codex. Maybe, well, we'll get the points for a Palatine, so hopefully soon. Of course, we have our Retributor squad, and they're pretty straightforward. The real things that you're typically taking them for is for volley of fire with heavy bolters, maybe some heavy flamers if you're running them up and torching things, or of course we are really using them for the almost required and auto take multi-meltas, especially with those new battle traits that we have available. We have our Immolator as well. Again, a pretty straightforward thing here. As usual, it comes with the Immolation Flamers and the Heavy Bolter, and those Immolation Flamers are going to be quite nice when you can pop them off for an automatic Overwatch there with one of those Crusade battle traits involved. So that's it for our Piety and Pain review here. It's a short book, but has a lot of useful stuff in it. Of course, it'd be nice if, the Drukhari didn't have to go and hunt for those rules separately after just getting a codex, just like we're seeing in the Warzone Charodon, if I got that pronounced right. But, it is a supplement, and of course, the box is a pretty good set there if you can find someone to split it with. Best of luck to you in your great crusades going forward, and always a shout out to my fellow Sisters of Battle players. I hope you enjoy that new Palatine model.